but now it's going to get really technical, and then it's I'll be stumped with you guys. I'm like, what are we reading? So yeah, that's the nature of these works. That's why you need to learn them from a bona fide spiritual master, or you will always be left stumped. But there are so many inner realizations that can be gleaned if you have the right source of guidance. But we do have Prabhupada's purport, so we can get a lot from that. And then what is still left in doubt, we can get rectified through the bona fide spiritual master, or the bhajana vigyam, one who's realized in bhajan. They'll be able to. And they're actually acting as a bona fide spiritual master in our life, maybe as a shiksha guru or something. So anyhow, let's begin here. Why don't we do, I'll share the screen and we'll do some prayers. Well, maybe we just recap where we at first. If you remember, it was only, Saturday? Saturday we read Bhagavatam, and we talked about...
I wasn't here, actually. Yeah, I was here.
You were here.
We read it in the morning.
Yeah, you just were in and out doing things. So the process of meditation should begin from the lotus feet of the Lord and progress to his smiling face. The meditation should be concentrated upon the lotus feet, then the calves and the thighs, in this way higher and higher. The more the mind becomes fixed upon the different parts of the limbs, one after another, the more the intelligence becomes purified. So it's talking about meditating on the form of the Lord. And then it said, unless the gross materialist develops a sense of loving service unto the Supreme Lord, the seer of both the transcendental and material worlds, he should remember or meditate upon the universal form of the Lord at the end of his prescribed duties.
Can you put it on the TV?
Yes, that's a good idea, huh? So this is actually... So until you have an understanding of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and his, Janma, Karma, Chime Divyam, all these things, right, Parth? Maybe we'll have to get Parth closer so he doesn't go out of short circuit back there. So, or
I've heard it before.
I hope it's just maybe like the shower running or something. I don't know. That sounds concerning.
It sounds like I don't know.
Well, we'll see. Maybe it's just like I'm running the sink. I don't know. I hope it's not a problem. Anyhow, so the gross materialist develops a sense of loving service unto the Supreme Lord, the seer of both the transcendental and material worlds. He should remember and meditate upon the universal form of the Lord at the end of his prescribed duties. So if you don't already have a loving relationship with the Lord, then your best bet is to try to see the Lord in the world around us. If you don't have a good sense, like here in the Krishna consciousness movement, we have been graced with the forms of Radha, Krishna, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Nityananda Prabhu, and we've seen deity forms of them. We hear their descriptions. But if you don't have any of that knowledge, then you can see the Lord through the growth of the trees, through the mountains, through the sky, through the sun and the moon, and it's described how that all equates to a giant cosmic form of the Lord. So, trying to fathom the unlimitedness of the Lord, just appreciation at the sheer greatness of the Lord via seeing, the rivers and the sky, and then just all of, the natural beauty of the manifested universe. So then, and greatness of it, and vastness of it. So then, it says, this is where we, I think, ended last time. We read this, right? O king, whenever the yogi desires to leave this planet of human beings, he should not be perplexed about the proper time or place, but should comfortably sit without being disturbed, and regulating the life air, should control the senses by the mind. So, this talks about when the yogi is no longer interested in... did we read this yesterday? Or Saturday?
No.
No.
We read the verse before, but I don't think we read that.
Okay, so this is...
I'm
this.
trying to think. Yeah.
Okay. So then,
So
we're on text 15 now. Alright, so I wrote 16 in the title on YouTube, but it's 15 we're going to read. So we'll start there. But before we begin, we'll say our prayer, our Mangalacharana prayers.
Well, I think you just there's a button at the top right. That, like on the Safari, like the top of it, go over to the right. It's like the little, like to the, that's,
Yeah.
Sorry, there's a button right here. If you hit that, I think you have your Bhagavatam window still open. Potentially.
No, I don't
Maybe
think
not.
so. Anyhow, it's okay. It's right here. It's very easy. It's right here, okay. So you can share it. We'll chant the prayers.
Savadutan, Pritana Satan, Krishna Chaitanya Devan, Sri Radha Krishna Paran, Sagana Lita, Shrisha, Kanitangshta, Hare Krishna Karuna Sindho, Dina Mando Jagatpate, Gopisha Gopika Kanta, Radhakanta Namostate, Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi, Radhe Vrindavaneshwari, Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye. Om Krishnaya Krishna Krishnaya Bhutale, Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gaurvani Pracharine, Nirvishesha Shunyavani Mastita Deshatarine, Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Advaita Gadadhara Sasari Gaura Bhaktivinoda, Hare Krishna Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare.
First and foremost, I want to offer my heart and my deep love, honor, and respect unto Sri Guru, the spiritual master, my life and what I have to offer is really useless, and it will be surely a misrepresentation, and it's my heartfelt intention to only share that which is in alignment with our disciplic line of the wisdom coming from Krishna through the saints, saint by saint, all the way to us. So I want to offer my obeisance to all the lineage of saints, our acharyas or spiritual gurus, who brought this timeless wisdom here all the way into 2026 into Syracuse, New York, where it's available for even us in America. And finally, I want to offer my obeisances to you guys, Parth, you too, and Madhav, and anyone maybe listening online, but all my spiritual brothers and sisters, Vancha Kalpa, Turubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyevacha Patitanang Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. So, are continuing with our Bhagavatam. Is that what happened?
I think you like on the same tab. Maybe if you click and go back.
That's wild. What can be done?
You know, text it.
Good morning, come on down, no problem. Alright, so we are going here. Good morning. No, you're fine. Do your thing. Ready? We'll begin. Sthirang sukhang cha sanamastito yatir. Yada jihasori mamangalokam. Kale cha deshe cha mano nasajaye. Prananya chenmanasajitasu. Sthiram, without being disturbed. Sukham, comfortable. Cha, also. Asanam, sitting accommodation. Astita, being situated. Yati, the sage. Yada, whenever. Jihasu, desires to give up. Imam, this. Anga, O king. Lokam, this body. Kale, in time. Cha, and. Deshe, in a proper place. Cha, also. Manaha, the mind. Na, not. Sajayat, may not be perplexed. Pranan, the senses. Niyachet, must control. Manasa, by the mind. Jitasu, conquering the life air. O king, whenever the yogi desires to leave this planet of human beings, he should not be perplexed about the proper time or place, but should comfortably sit without being disturbed, and regulating the life air, should control the senses by the mind. So remember, it said give up your family, give up everything. He's teaching how to actually die. Go where, kids aren't going to go disturb you, or the wife's not going to go disturb you. You're trying to die, which is, a pretty, serious matter here. So no one should disturb you. And begin regulating the life air. What's that called? Regulating the life air. It's usually called pranayama. That's, here it's called jitasu, conquering the life air. So being perfected in this pranayama. So, and you should control the senses by the mind instead of the senses being outward and trying to even potentially engage externally with the material world. Now the senses are completely turned inward, and the yogi is ready to take the life air, out of the body, direct the life air onto the next destination, to actually elevate the life air, and the soul will travel with it. And if you don't die very skillfully, you'll actually your life air, especially if you have a low destination coming, you'll leave through the anus of the body actually. So many people at death, because they don't know to fast before death and all these things, they usually will not just pass gas. The body will release stool, at the final moment of death. It's an indicator that, oh no, they may not have achieved. It's still possible to achieve like that with the Lord's mercy, but the indicator is that there's a way to die, and you should fast before death, and that way there's nothing, and it lightens up the body, and it allows for the soul to potentially elevate in a much easier way. So But like with the pastime of, if the Lord's involved, he can, even though you might not be qualified to elevate by externally, but by the mercy of the Lord, like Aghasura, when Aghasura swallowed Krishna and all the cowherd boys, Krishna expanded in his throat and forced his life air out of his body through his expansion, out through the Brahmarandra, where like this, where the Shika is. That's where you're supposed to leave your body. So anyway, this is like a yogic, skillful process on how to die. So let's see what Prabhupada says. In the Bhagavad Gita 8.14, it is clearly stated that a person is totally engaged in the transcendental loving service of the Lord, and who constantly remembers him at every step, easily obtains the mercy of the Lord by entering into his personal contact. Such devotees do not need to seek an opportune moment to leave the present body. But those who are mixed devotees, alloyed with fruitive action or empirical philosophical speculation, require an opportune moment for quitting this body. For them, the opportune moments are stated in Bhagavad Gita 8:23-26. But these opportune moments are not as important as one's being a successful yogi who is able to quit his body as he likes. Such a yogi must be competent to control his senses by the mind. The mind is easily conquered simply by engaging it at the lotus feet of the Lord. Gradually, by such service, all the senses become automatically engaged in the service of the Lord. That is the way of merging into the Supreme Absolute. So, ultimately, what we're trying to do is be able, within our mind, to really think of the Lord, within our consciousness, to really turn our consciousness towards the Lord. But if we're not fully perfect, like a pure devotee in that, then there are some technical tools that can help us, like the yoga process, controlling, getting a proper seat, sitting up tall in the proper seat, following all the yamas and niyamas. You're observing a life of celibacy, you're observing a life of studying the wisdom scriptures, observing the life of purity, honesty, non-violence, all of these things. Pure devotees follow all these things anyway. And then you sit up tall and you start to control the breathing process through regulating the breathing and deepening and lengthening the breathing. And this is called pranayama. And then your senses, instead of turning them outwards, what do my eyes see? What do my ears see? What is my mind thinking about in the external material world? Everything is turned inward. And from that inward process, you can actually begin to concentrate on your object of meditation. Now here, Shukadeva Goswami, he recommends, if you have no knowledge of the sweet personalities that the Lord manifests as, and have an Ishtadev, then he says everyone can meditate on the cosmic form of the Lord. Then, though, if you do have an Ishtadev, you can focus or on, like maybe you've heard some of the verses of Krishna's description, like Shamang Hiranya Paradim Vanamalya Barha Datu Pravalanatave Shamanu Vratangshe Vinyasta Hastamitarena Dunanamabjam Karnot Palalaka Kapola Mukhabjahasam. This is describing, Krishna's sham-like skin and his hiranya, golden paradim garment, and his vanamalya, his beautiful, what is this called? Garland, forest flower garland, and his peacock feather, his barha, and then what is it? Dhatu Pravala. Dhatu is like colored minerals are decorating his body, like we see the deities. That's why when we worship the deities, we do all these things, especially like ISKCON Vrindavan and all these places. They such a high standard because this is the descriptions of Krishna, and this is training the body training the mind to see Krishna in meditation. So anyway, but if you don't have knowledge of the Lord's form, and that's not really, then you can meditate on what you have experience with in this world, the great cosmic expanse of the universe that you've already perceived, and relating that to the body parts of the Lord is described by Shukadeva Goswami. But that's a more mixed process. But Prabhupada is emphasizing, but if you're totally engaged in the transcendental loving service of the Lord and you remember Him every step, it's very easy. It's just already in your consciousness. You don't even have to get all. You don't even have to probably do all of these things. But anyhow, we should at least, because we're mixed, we should know the process, and try to observe it nicely. And if we could get unmixed, though, then Krishna will just arrange everything. Then we'll just go back to Him without any effort, and it won't be any, we don't have to arrange the proper time and place or this, that, and the other thing. It will all just work out perfectly. But if we're still mixed, then we want to try to arrange ourselves to be better situated. So that's, like this. I didn't finish the verse. Dhatu Pravalas, colored minerals and forest twigs, and he's decorating his body with all these things, and he looks like he dressed like the most skillful of dancers on a stage. Dhatu Pravala Natavesham Anuvratankshe, and on his friend's shoulder he rests his hand on a friend's shoulder. And then Vinyasta Hastam, he's placing his hand on his friend's shoulder. Anuvratankshe is a friend's shoulder. And then Itarena, with his other hand, Dunanam Abjam, he's twirling a lily in his other hand. So this is actually described by the, who was it? It was, no, it wasn't Brahma. It was, I want to say it was the wives of the Brahmins who, when they saw Krishna, this is the scene they saw. He was sitting there, looking all beautiful, how he always looks, and then resting his hand on the front of his shoulder, twirling a lily in the other hand. And then Karnot Palalaka Kapola. So from his ears, Utpala, lilies are decorating his ears, and Alaka Kapola is his hair is coming over his cheeks, his black curling tresses are surrounding his face, and Mukhabja Hasam, his lotus face is smiling. So anyway, these verses are there because they actually give you an idea, a focal point of meditation. But if we don't have such, deep meditation, I know the verses, but I don't, I'm not realizing, I'm not actually seeing Krishna in this form. When we see the deity form of Krishna, though, especially when the worship is done on a very high standard, this becomes very clear. It could be this vision can come very easily to those who establish the deities very nicely. So that's why we have a very high standard across ISKCON and the Gaudiya Vaishnava community of worshipping the deities in such a way. But if you don't understand what's happening, then it's like, well, why are we singing to statues and things like that? So I think we should have a Western program separate from the temple worship, because it's just so foreign.
Not everyone's open-minded like
Yeah. Elijah's, he's a special case. But when you bring a Western person in here, it's, I was freaked out. I actually wanted to leave and never come back, but only because I met a devotee named Dina Bandhu, and he was Western, and he helped pacify so many of my doubts, and he was just so sweet. But I was thinking, no, I'll never come back. This is a weird Indian thing. I'm not into this at all. They're worshiping statues, like that's really, yeah. So these are the thoughts that come, and I know I had these thoughts, and if I didn't get saved by another devotee, being able to reconcile and help me, be pacified, I would have just made all these assumptions that this is just some crazy, weird cult worship thing, and that. But when you understand some of the deeper semantics, it makes all these things can be explained reasonably, but in the beginning, it's very difficult to understand these things. So anyway, I think actually the growth of Mantra Central is, until we get into the university or we have good outreach programs specifically for Westerners, we'll never get them. Unless they're, their dad raised them to read Prabhupada's books, or, someone like Venugopal. I forget how we got him, but he already,
Like,
Yeah, well, they went to a program. Keshav Gopal and Steve went to a program, and they found Ben. But he came here, and when Venugopal now, he came here, and he actually he didn't run away from what he saw. But I had to spend a ton of time with him to just really pacify all these things. So better we can meet people on a level that's closer to where they're at, and they can resonate with some of the more gradual processes, and then they can eventually come here, see the deity worship, all these things. So anyway, that's an idea that me and my wife are having. And if I have some time while I'm away, I'm going to focus on really doing a lot of outreach, like to different yoga studios, and maybe I don't know. I would love to have. You guys should know some students, some undergrad student. We have to somehow meet one of these personalities and just. It only takes 2 of them to make a club, and we already have Preeti as a professor. She can sign off on it. It's finished. But we just, for whatever reason, we have not penetrated the university practically at all, except for the PhDs and masters and all these. But we need these undergrads for these clubs.
I don't know anyone from that area.
Yeah. We have not done an ideal job yet, as of yet. Anyhow, we're talking about how to die. I don't know how we got into preaching, but it came from the meditation on the deity. So anyway, this is how the yogi should die. This is a more mixed process, but we're in the beginning of the Bhagavatam. We can't expect the pure process right away. But it's good to know. It's really good to know, because one, you're probably mixed, and it's good to know for your own meditation. And then also it's good to know how to help others who are very mixed, and how to still their mind, control their senses, and all these things. And if you're uncontrolled senses, it'll teach you all these things as well. So anyhow.
So,
yes.
Like, there's some devotees, they practice pranayama before they chant the round or something, but it's also not so heavily, stressed upon.
It's not true. It is. I mean, Prabhupada, he didn't want anyone doing any of these things because he didn't want to confuse them. But actually in the Hari Bhakti Vilas, it says that before chanting japa, one should do pranayama for 5 minutes, actually.
I see how it can even help me, in many ways in my chanting. But I'm just is it something that I should try to? Because I don't know.
What I do, and I think this would be in alignment with Prabhupada and our acharyas, is you can sit and you can breathe deeply, and you can meditate on some pranam mantras. Maybe a few pranam mantras for Prabhupada, maybe pranam mantras for Guru Maharaj. We know, right? Om Ajnana Timirandhasya. So if you do your pranam mantras while breathing deeply and controlling the mind and all these things, this is good. When I do my Gayatri mantras, and that's how it helps me. And in that way you can, prepare yourself to chant japa nicely. So, that way it's you get the best of both worlds. But Prabhupada didn't really want us to, because this is a mixed process, he didn't want us to get lost in the mixed element of it. So he, and he saw how fanatical Western people were. Indians are a bit more balanced. But Western people, they, can get over fanatical about just about anything, especially material sense gratification. So Prabhupada, he saw that tendency, so he said, only, if you're going to get fanatical about anything, just get fanatical about chanting Hare Krishna, because that's the main thing that you're going to should get fanatical about. And, everything else he knew would just work itself out. But, and we still see in many remnants of his movement, we're still a bit fanatical, and they're never breathe properly, don't look at the astrology chart, don't ever, no, this is all Vedic culture, it's all part, but it's the gradual mixed part. You should understand its position. But anyway, it just has to do with maturity. But yeah, it is recommended, actually, in properly chanting japa. It's recommended for 5 minutes of pranayama before. But it's, even that's definitely not happening in my life. But what is happening in my life is I also, during my Gayatri, I also try to steady my mind so I could even focus on the Gayatri. But even focusing on the Maha Mantra, if you don't have a process to control your mind and your breath and all these things, you won't focus on the Maha Mantra. So, all of these things have to actually be there. So anyway, but it's all achieved in intense devotion, actually. If you have some intense devotion, the breath will, everything will be perfectly situated. It's already arranged. But if we don't have intense devotion, which may very well be the case, these things helps you to gradually cultivate the proper meditative mood and so on. But we should understand and not get too fanatical. There was a revolution Prabhupada was starting where it was good to get fanatic. It was needed to actually get fanatical to start and spread this movement so quickly. He knew he had limited time. He knew people were after him. He knew so many things. So he threw out, any of the mixed things, no, just the essence. Krishna, Supreme Personality of Godhead, chant Hare Krishna, because there's so many times that you see in the Bhagavatam, and he translates things a certain way. But the Bhagavatam, may emphasize the names of Hari or this name of Hari, and then Prabhupada just writes, the chanting of the Hare Krishna mantra. You see it everywhere. It says nothing about the Hare Krishna mantra in the actual verse. But the essence of the mantra, it does indirectly. But the essence of what Prabhupada was doing is that he was giving the most important thing, as per the conclusions of the scriptures, and showing how this is leading you there. But if you, even in these translations, you could sense that, Prabhupada is, and in all the purports, he's not trying to have you focus on these things per se. He's trying to get you to focus on the higher thing. So, and this is important, actually, because we could get lost in this element for many years, and then we could waste the whole life like this. So Prabhupada doesn't want us to, not see the highest essences given by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and our acharyas. And it is truly the conclusion of the Bhagavatam. He's not giving something that's not. It's just, he's heavily speeding up the process for us, and explaining it nicely as we go. So anyway, let's see the purport here. Right? Any other what?
Did we chant this verse? We didn't chant it.
Oh, we didn't even chant the verse. We must do that then. Manasvabuddhyam alayani yamya kshetragya etang ninayettam atmani atmanam atmanyavarudhya dhiro labdo pashantir virameta kritya. Mana, the mind. Swabuddhya, by his own intelligence. Amalaya, unalloyed. Niyamya, by regulating. Kshetragya, unto the living entity. Etam, all of them. Ninaya, merge. Tam, that. Atmani, the self. Atmanam, the self. Atmani, in the super self. Avarudhya, being locked up. Dhiraha, the fully satisfied. Labda upashanti, one who has attained full bliss. Virameta, ceases from. Krityat, all other activities. And this is where it's going to start. I have just no realization of these levels. So anyhow, thereafter the yogi should merge his mind by his unalloyed intelligence into the living entity, and then merge the living entity into the super self. And by doing this, the fully satisfied living entity becomes situated in the supreme stage of satisfaction, so that he ceases from all other activities. Let's read the purport before I say anything. The functions of the mind are thinking, feeling, and willing. When the mind is materialistic or absorbed in material contact, it acts for material advancement of knowledge, destructively ending in discovery of nuclear weapons. But when the mind acts under the spiritual urge, or under spiritual urge, it acts wonderfully for going back home, back to Godhead, for life and complete bliss in eternity. Therefore, the mind has to be manipulated by good and unalloyed intelligence. That's what mantra is. It's the manipulation of the mind towards freedom, towards something good for it. Perfect intelligence is to render service unto the Lord. One should be intelligent enough to understand that the living being is in all circumstances a servant of the circumstances. Every living being is serving the dictates of desire, anger, lust, illusion, insanity, and enviousness, all materially affected. But even while executing such dictations of different temperaments, he is perpetually unhappy. When one actually feels this and turns his intelligence to inquiring about it from the right sources, he gets information of the transcendental loving service of the Lord. Instead of serving materially for the above-mentioned different humors of the body, materially for the above-mentioned different humors of the body, the living entity's intelligence then becomes freed from the unhappy illusion of materialistic temperament. And thus, by unalloyed intelligence, the mind is brought into the service of the Lord. The Lord and his service are identical, being on the absolute plane. Therefore, the unalloyed intelligence and the mind are merged into the Lord, and thus the living entity does not remain a seer himself, but becomes seen by the Lord transcendentally. When the living entity is directly seen by the Lord dictates to him to act according to his desire. And when the living entity follows him perfectly, the living entity ceases to discharge any other duty for his illusory satisfaction. In his pure unalloyed state, the living being attains the stage of full bliss, labdho pashanti, and seizes all material hankerings. So, there's a lot here. So we have to kind of break many things down here. So the mind thinks, it feels, and it wills, and has desire. So right now, the mind is absorbed in material contact, externally, and very interested in matter and engaging matter in the body's senses, and using the body's senses, and then there's some subtle enjoyment when the mind enjoys sense gratification. But it's a destructive process, and Prabhupada writes here, it's kind of cute, that it ends in the discovery of nuclear weapons. It leads to such heavily quarrel for sense gratification in the world, where we are willing to kill each other on mass scale. But when the mind acts under the spiritual urge, it acts wonderfully for going back home, back to Godhead, for life in complete bliss and eternity. So we are trying to chant mantra, and the mantras that are going to train the mind, instead of going out into the material world to try to engage in a destructive process that only leads in death and all kinds of vishada, lamentation in this world. Instead, it's trying to direct the mind for the spiritual urge. So Prabhupada, he says what this is, even though it doesn't say anything about this in the verse itself, because this is for the perfected yogi. But for us, where we're at, he says, perfect intelligence is to render service unto the Lord. And one should be intelligent enough to understand that the living being is in all circumstances a servant of the circumstances. So meaning that whatever is going on around you, you're a servant of the thinking, feeling, willing of this, but actually you're not necessarily rightly situated at the soul. You're not actually rightly situated. Your idea about the situation isn't the situation. But by the circumstances, you're thrown away by the energies of the material energies, and you're a servant of the material energies. So every living being is serving the dictates of desire, anger, lust, illusion, insanity, and enviousness, all materially affected. Like if you see a beautiful woman and you're, this happened in the Shastra a few times where, especially when a personality they were trying to bewilder another personality, and all of a sudden that woman's clothes blow off or something like that, and you're trying to stay in meditation. But all of a sudden, by the beautiful energies and things, the mind will be captivated, and you'll, who knows what stupid thing would happen to a man in such a situation. Like Lord Shiva ends up running after the Mohini Murti. Even Lord Shiva, the most controlled in the person in the universe, when he sees the most beautiful deluding potency of the Lord in the Mohini form, he, right in front of Parvati, right in front of his exalted, most beautiful wife, just completely lost his control. So anyway, this is an example in many lesser degrees of what's happening in this world. We see the circumstances, but due to the energies present in the circumstances and our lack of resting the soul in its proper position, we are just completely materially affected by the circumstances, and we fall into the modes of nature. And so we chase women, we chase wealth, we chase, for men, you guys are men here, we're talking about this, but for women it may be the opposite, chasing men. But we chase all of these things of this material world, not even realize we're completely servants of the circumstances, of the energies happening around us, but we're not actually situated rightly as the soul of a servant of the Lord. So that's why when we engage in these services to God, devotional services, this is purifying this tendency to be a servant of the lower base energies of this material world. So we have to try to understand this, that, I'm getting pulled into desire, anger, lust, illusion, insanity, and enviousness. This isn't my situation. This isn't the proper situation. But you'll be perpetually unhappy like this. It never satisfies you. It's guaranteed unsatisfaction, because it's the nature of these external energies of this material world to make you unhappy. And that's the great mercy of it. You're supposed to come to the realization of Vishada. If you engage with the world around you, the intelligent person will eventually realize, I have no option, I'm sad at every level. There's no happiness. There's no lasting, long-standing happiness in this world. It's all misery from start to finish, actually. But the sage can be blissful, actually, because he knows who he actually is and what is the real source of happiness. So the yogi, they don't care so much for the worldly things. But for those of us who are servants of the six enemies, inspired by all of the material energies moving around us, the circumstances, as Prabhupada writes them, we just get pulled. We're off. Here we go. Down the avenue of lust, down the avenue of greed, down the avenue, and then we just go mad, actually. Become insane and completely envious of others. No, this is mine, and I have to secure my position here. It's a shame. And I'm speaking for myself. It's a shame when I engage in such foolishness. So when one actually feels this and turns his intelligence to inquiring about it from the right sources, he gets information of the transcendental loving service of the Lord. And when somebody's humble and actually feels his vishada, his lamentation, his unhappiness in this world doing these things, he eventually will feel like, well, why does it never work out for me? Not necessarily realizing that it never works out for anybody, but why does it never work out for me? Why can I never just quite get it right and be like happy? Other people seem happy, but they're not. You're only seeing a little, like on social media, everyone seems very happy on social media, but you're just seeing like the the best portion of their life, especially if they're, more envious. They want to show you, look what I'm doing, like this. But even why feel the need? If your life is great and you're doing so many wonderful things, why do you need to yes, just see? you only do that if your life is not so great and you're trying to get some subtle pleasure from something else, actually. So anyhow, this is, but you might not realize that, others are actually unhappy. You're just seeing maybe little portions of life where they're getting joy and sense gratification, but it's temporary and it can't be maintained. So, what is happening here? It says, instead of serving materially for the above-mentioned different humors of the body, the living entity's intelligence then becomes freed from the unhappy illusion of materialistic temperament. And thus, by unalloyed intelligence, the mind is brought into the service of the Lord. So, if you ask from the right sources why you're suffering and they give you some solutions, then you can actually be freed from this chain of just chasing all of these nonsense. That's why Prabhupada gave 4 regulative principles. Like, don't chase these things. If you don't chase these things, you can make advancement. But if you do chase these things, you'll be checked. And you really won't be able to progress much. So, what are the 4 things? Harder than it looks, right? To follow them. What are they for?
No meat eating, no illicit sex, no gambling. Meat eating, illicit sex, no gambling, no intoxication.
And then what are the 4 virtues that each one is supposed to prevent you from, each one of those prevents you from accomplishing?
So, meat eating is mercy.
Yes.
Intoxication is
Awesome.
illicit sex life is cleanliness. Illicit sex is cleanliness.
Intoxication is? Madhav just said it for you. Austerity, being disciplined.
Discipline, and gambling is truthfulness.
Yes.
And,
that's the 4.
this is gambling.
Yeah. So truthfulness and gambling. You want to be honest in your businesses and your endeavors and all these things. Mercy, meat eating is engaging in compassion and mercy to other living entities. Intoxication is it stops you from being disciplined or austere. Having a really disciplined program to make advancement in your life. When you take intoxications, they loosen you, and next thing you know, you don't really have much discipline. And then finally is sex life is it's unclean, and it's actually the most potent and most powerful, and it's based on the most illusion. They're all based off illusion, but it's the seed of all the other ones. And that is not understanding who you really are, and not understanding who others and what the circumstances of this reality is, and thinking that base sense gratification will give happiness. And it's very unclean in the consciousness. It's the most unclean thing in the consciousness. Actually, the physical act itself is an exchange of all kinds of different fluids and things like that are, you could say, unclean. But actually, it's the most unclean thing for the consciousness, because when you engage in sex life, then all of a sudden you're meditating on sex life everywhere. So just stop sex life for a little bit and just see how the mind purifies. It's so quick and so prominent, actually. So there's no chance at a clean consciousness when you're engaging in the sex life, which is why all of these so-called false gurus who try to take the position of swamis, they all fall from grace because they get intoxicated by sex life. It's like the final boss of the material world. You think you can conquer so many things? Just wait. Maya will have some very potent arrangement for you. And then, then people, all the great sages and munis, unless they're fully engaged in service to the Lord, they fall down to sex life. And even Lord Shiva, if the Lord wants to, bewilder him, it cannot be stopped. So there's there's no chance of escaping or cheating the system. If you cheat the system and you try and engage in inappropriate activities, you'll never get the result. You'll never do it. So, but if you develop an attitude of devotion to the Lord, then Krishna will protect you in so many ways. He'll protect you. I've seen in my life where I'm just completely unqualified and struggling with my senses and all the lusts and all these things. But by being engaged in devotional service, I just see Krishna's protection. Yogakshamam Vahamyaham. He provides everything that I need and he carries everything that I lack. And so everyone will get the same benefit if you practice in devotion. So that's why Prabhupada's giving, that's the solution. So the Lord and his service are identical, being on the absolute plane. Therefore the unalloyed intelligence and the mind are merged into the Lord. And so when you engage in the service, the devotional service, the bhakti process, you're actually associating with the Lord. Everything to do with the Lord is identical. Which is why if we just chant his name, it's there. But also the consciousness, the full consciousness is not just a lip service. The consciousness also has, I'm calling out to you, Lord. But we don't necessarily have this as a part of our practice. So, like this. So, anyhow, therefore the unalloyed intelligence and the mind are merged into the Lord, and thus the living entity does not remain a seer himself, but becomes seen by the Lord transcendentally. This is important. This is part of the verse. Or was that the last verse? Or was it 2 verses ago? Yes. The Supreme Lord was described as the seer of both the transcendental and material worlds. Also meaning that's how these worlds are created, by the Lord seeing them. That's how everything is created, by his, anything that he desires, even sees within his consciousness, takes birth. This is the nature of omnipotency of God. Anything he desires becomes reality. Everything is going on by the Lord's desire, actually. And if you want to associate with the struggling nature of the Lord's desire, which is this material world leading us to Vishada, we're welcome to, and he does. He allows us to. But if we turn our attention to him and stop thinking we're the seer and trying to impose our own desires on reality, and we just choose to try to be seen by the Lord and ready to do any service that the Lord makes apparent to us through his devotees, through our Guru, through the Shastras, through all these things, Sadhu, Shastra, and Guru. If we become seen by them and allow ourselves to be seen by them and become a humble receptacle of their mercy, then we're seen by the Lord. And sorry, and you'll stop. You don't remain a seer himself, but become seen by the Lord transcendentally. When the living entity is directly seen by the Lord dictates him to act according to his desire. And when the living entity follows him perfectly, the living entity ceases to discharge any other duty for his illusory satisfaction. So he'll stop doing this external and material nonsense thing that's only causing him vishada or unhappiness. And he decides to be seen by the Lord and become the Lord's instrument. And then, when we follow him perfectly, we'll give up all these other duties. And in this pure unalloyed state, the living being attains the stage of full bliss. Labdo pashanti is attaining bliss and ceases all material hankerings. So this is the process here Prabhupada is giving. So the verse, back to this. Thereafter the yogi should merge his mind by his unalloyed intelligence into the living entity. First, realize who you are. So Krishna, he gives, the nature of the soul. Never did I not exist, nor you, nor any of these kings, and never shall any of us cease to be. That's Jiva Tattva. And then merge the living entity into the super self. Understand the reality, also taught in Bhagavad Gita, of the Paramatma. You know, the consciousness of God doing all things. You know, this is also what's described in the 11th chapter, the divine vision. This is what's being described here when seeing the Lord in all of these things. At the cosmic level, he's the super soul, and even at the minute level, he's the super soul, everything. And by doing this, the fully satisfied living entity becomes situated in the supreme stage of satisfaction. So he ceases from all other activities. Meaning, everything's already perfect for the living entity. You don't need, if only this worked out this way, or if only this worked out this way, if only I had this, or if only I had this. No, if only you had this. That's it. If only you were, if only we were situated peacefully in our devotional service, in our devotional meditation. That's the only problem, actually. Everything else. But the problem is we keep thinking it's out there. But it's over and over again. We're just going to become enslaved to the circumstances, and we're just going to find ourselves vishada, 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 lamentation everywhere you turn except in. If you turn in, then it's perfect. Everything's perfect. But the problem is the circumstances, things pull us out. You know, mommy or daddy calls, the next thing you get pulled out. Wife calls, you get pulled out. Baby calls, you get pulled out, and next thing you know, you're just chasing circumstances, and you're a servant to them all, and then what do you get at the end of it all, Madhav?
Suffering.
Yes, you just become, yes.
And a bad destination after that.
Yes, so now you know. So you know these things, so don't be a fool. You know, don't turn and get chased and pulled by all these things. We should know. No, I have my duty. For us here, for me, I get a lot of, some of my most nectarian realizations come from just studying this Bhagavatam with you guys every day. It's my favorite part of the day, actually. Everything else I do, I'm struggling. Even my chanting, I also like Mangal Arati to sing. I like everything that we do every day. But everything is, especially, you know, after this, and we do our kirtan, then I'm struggling for the rest of the day. To recenter. The circumstances are pulling. But when we what?
Prabhupada says a servant or the servant of the circumstances.
Yes. So, but we should not. We should try to always see that we're the servant of the Lord and how to be engaged in the Lord's service in this time, in this place, in these circumstances. So like this, and through that, we can do that through Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra, and we can know what we need to do. Grantharaj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. Very good. We'll continue on. And tomorrow